Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about candlestick charts and how we can implement this type of chart using JavaScript and library of Google Charts. It's better you first watch the Google Charts video if you haven't, that I'll give you link in the description and card at the top. But either way, you can code this by end of this video. But if you watch that, you will have better understanding on the structure of our code. So let's jump into our VS Code, which here we have this index.html as empty file and another empty JavaScript file. First, let's link our HTML and JavaScript together. So we use our simple HTML template, and here in our body, we're going to have our div with the ID of chart. So we put our chart in this tag. And after our body tag, we need to have our script tag, which is going to link the index.js file for us. And above this tag, we're going to have the CDN link and importing of our CDN into our index.html, which I'm going to give you this link right here, which is Google Charts CDN link, and you can code beside of me on this chart. And here in the head part, in our style, we're going to get rid of all of the default margins that we have, so our page be prettier. Now, after this one, we're going to simply open our index.html using our live server, which, as you know, by using this, which is an extension in VS Code, we don't need to refresh our code every time we make a change, and any change that we have inside of our code is going to be applied on real time on our web page. So first, let's come into our index.js and write the basic codes for our chart, and then we're going to do other things step by step. First, as you know, we need to import and load our two lines that are necessary for having Google Charts in our web page. So they are going to be this google.charts.load, and inside of this, we're going to have this current and the object with property of package, which here we need to have this core chart right here. And after this, we're going to have this google.chart.set unload callback, and this is going to have our callback function, which in this case, we're going to name this chart function. Now, after these two lines, let's create our callback function. So let's use our ES6 and arrow function. So we have this chart function right here, which is going to receive no parameters. And inside of this, we can start doing our thing. First, we need to have our data to be saved inside a variable. So we create this data variable, and inside of this, we're going to use this method inside of our object, which is google.visualization. And inside of that, we have method of array to data type. And here, inside of this method, we need to have one to the array here, and after this, we need to pass this boolean of true right here. And inside of our array, we can have our data, which here, each candle that we have is going to be in one array. So if we want to have, for example, 3 candles, here we need to have 3 arrays just like this inside of our first and big array. And inside of this array, we need to have 5 items, because each of our array has 5 things inside of it, which first one is being the date and the time zone that this array is. For example, if it's on minutes, on which minute we have this array, or if it's a month, on which month we have this array. Then we have this 4 values right here, which being the upper shadow that you see right here, which is the value that price has reached onto that point in this time. After that, we have the lower shadow, which is the lowest price that we have in this time and this candle. And after that, we have close and open item, which if our candle is green and bullish candle, which is going to say to us that our price has gone up on this time, the open value is going to be right here and close to be right here. And if candle is red or bearish, we have the opening price to this point and closing price to this point. And how we're going to code this is, first we're going to have this date and time that our candle is on that. Then we're going to have our low shadow. After this, the opening price. And after this, we have this close price. And at the last, we have this high shadow. For example, here, if we want to say our candle is for a day, we can say that this is for Monday. For the lower shadow, let's say in Monday, our candle and our price's lowest value is going to be 60. For the opening, let's say it opens on 70. For the close, let's say this is bullish candle and the price is higher than it entered to the Monday. So we got this 90, and the highest value that we got in our Monday, let's say 110. And this is going to be one candle right here. So let's say here we have 12 candles, which is going to show us how price of something has acted and changed through the year. So we have 12 candle as 12 months inside of our year. So by having this, you can see that we got our first month with lower shadow of 10, which is as same as our entry price and opening price. We have closing price of 20, and the high shadow and highest price in this month is going to be 25. After we declare this data, we need to have our options. So we create this options right here, which is going to be empty objects right here, but we're going to come and fill this after. And as you know from the previous video of Google Charts, we need to create chart objects right here by using the class that we want the type of our chart to be. So here again, we're going to have this Google.visualization, and inside of this time, we want to use the class and constructor of candlestick chart. And after this, inside of these parentheses, we need to get access to our tag, which you see that here we got this tag with the ID of chart, and let's remove this random characters right here. So to access that, we're going to use our HTML down, which is going to be this document that gets element by ID, and the ID that we want is going to be chart. And after we got this one, let's use our chart object and then this draw method inside of it. And here we need to pass the data that we have and the options that we're going to create. And after this one, let's actually make our function to regular function, because this is callback function. So we got this function, and pay attention that here we have misspelled charts, and this is not chart and need to be charts. And now by having these, if we bring our web page, you can see that we got some candlestick charts right here. But we have our options that we can make this look however that we want. So here, let's come into our index.js, and here let's in the style tag select our div with the ID of chart and make the width and height into 100%. Now let's come into our JavaScript and work on our options, which is going to define the interactivity and the style of our chart. So here in our objects, the first property that we want to talk about is going to be the title for our chart. So here we can have this title property, and inside of this, we can put anything that we want. For example, in this case, I'm going to put this candlestick chart title here on my chart. And by putting this, you can see that here we got this candlestick chart title right here. And if we want to change the style of this, we're going to have this title text style property, which this is going to be object that here we can declare and change something. For example, the first thing that we can change is font name for our title. So what thing that you want right here, you can put inside of this string. For example, if we want to use this mono space, you can see that our title's font has changed. And after this, which I'm going to not use this, and I want the default font that we have. After this, we have this font size, which by this, we can make how big we want our font to be, which is going to receive number from us in pixels. For example, if you want your font to be in 30 pixel, you can put this 30 and you can have this result. After this one, we can have the property of bold, which is going to be volume value that if we put true, you can see that our title is going to be bold. And if we make this 0 or false, it's going to be regular, which we want this to be bold. And after this, we have another option and property of italic. So we can have our title to be in italic mode. We're not going to use this right here. After this one, you can see that here we got this legend, which is going to be something like an instructor for us, but we don't want this. So here, after we finish this title text style, here we're going to use the property of legend and put this non-word in front of that. And by doing this, you can see that we don't have that thing right here. But as you see, our chart is not taking all of the space that we have and in the center parts right here. So for controlling our chart area, which is this area right here, we have the property of chart area, which is going to be object, of course, and inside of this, we can declare something. For example, here, we can declare when it starts after here. So we put, for example, 50 pixels after left, and it starts from there. So here we have this left property and put the number of 50 here. You can see now we move that right here. And just as same as this, we can have this right property, so it go to other side, and we can have property of top, so it have some space from the above of our page, which you can see now it's like this. But if we make this top, for example, to be 80, you can see the change. But another thing that we can use and control these is by using our width and height property. So for this width property, we need to pass the size that we want. For example, in this case, I want the width to be 80% of my container, which is the div that we have in our index.html. And after this, of course, we can have this height. And here again, I want to use this 80%. And if we want to have our chart to be here in index.html, we can change this height to view width, so we can have this result right here. Another thing that we can declare and change in this chart area object is going to be background color for our chart area. And how we're going to change this is just by using this background color property. And here we need to pass the color. For example, if we pass this red, you can see that it has changed to red. But here in this case, I want to use the color with the hex code of 1F1E1E, which is this color right here. But for now, we're going to comment this out, and later when we change the other style properties, we're going to change that too. After this item, we're going to have another property with the name of bar. And what this does is it's going to control the width of our bars for us. For example, here, let's say we want them to be in 50 pixel. So here we're going to have another property of group width, and here we can pass this 50. And you can see that how it changed. Of course, you can put this for any number that you want, which this number is going to be in pixel, and going to specify and define the width for each of our candles or bars, which in this case, I'm going to stay with the default one. Now, if we hover on each of our candles, you can see that we got this tooltip appearing that give us some information. First of all is being the number of the month that we're on, which in this case is number 4. Then the low shadow and lowest price that we got in this month, which is going to be 49. The high shadow and highest price, which is going to be 78. And the opening price to be 50. And the closing price to be 7. But we can have some settings for this one too. So the first thing that we can do is make that to appear when we click on candles and not by hovering on them. And for that, here we're going to use this tooltip property right here, which is going to be object, and inside of this we're going to have another property of trigger. And here we can pass this hover, which is the default. So when we hover on these candles, it appears, or we can have this selection. So by having this, if we hover, you can see nothing happens. But if we select candle, it's going to make this tooltip appear and we can see the details. But you can see that now we have selected this 8th one, and let's say we want to select the first one too. And when we select this, it's going to be unselect and this one is going to be selected. So for the ability to have all of them select and simply multi-select, we can have another property right here. And pay attention, this item is an options object and not tooltip object. And here we can have this selection mode, and here we need to pass the string. So this is single selection, but we want this one to be multiple. And by having this, you can see now if we select this one and select this one, here we got both of them selecting, and we got the result for our first candle to be right here and for our fourth candle to be right here. And we can compare them very easily by this option. But you can see this can be a little complicated. So if we want to divide this better, we can have another property here, which is going to be our focus target. And here we need to pass something right here. So let's say here we have this string of category. And here by having this, if we select this, you can see that here we got this number and this little blue box near to its options. But if we get rid of this item, you can see that we don't have that thing. The next thing that we want to have is, you see that in this case, if we click on one of our candles, we got this result. But if we multi-select, we don't get that one. For having that, here we need to have this aggregation target. And here again, we can set this to this category. Now, if we select one of them, you can see this result. And if we select two, you can see that we got multiple of selections by that format. Another thing that our focus target can do is, if we comment this out right here and click right here, you can see nothing happens. But if we click on the candle, you can see that we got the result. But if we make this focus target to be category, if we click here, you can see that again, we're going to select that. And we're going to select this virtual vertical bars right here. So if we want to select this one, it doesn't matter we click here or here. So if I click right here, you can see that this has selected and we got the results. But in some cases, you don't want your user to be able to interact with the chart. And for that, you have option of enable interactivity here in your object. So here, if we make this number 1, you can see that we can interact with our chart. But if we make this 0, if we hover on these, click on this, nothing is going to be happen. Then after this settings, let's talk about styling our chart right here. So for styling the candlestick chart, we need to have this candlestick property right here, which is going to be object. Here we have a bunch of things that we can work with. The first thing that you can see inside of our chart is our bullish candles and candles which they are going to be increase the price is going to be filled, and the opposite of that, the bearish candles and the candles that are going to decrease the price are empty. For swapping these places together, we can have this option of hollow is rising. And if we make this to the value of true, you can see that we have swapped these items. And if we make this number 0 or false value, we got the actual result. But we don't need this one right here. Now let's change the appearance of our candles. First, let's start with these candles, which are our bullish candle or rising candle. So for changing the color of those, here we can have this rising color, which is going to be another object itself. And inside of this, we can have this property fill, and here we can pass what color that we want it to be. Because this is rising, I like to make this color of green. Now you can see all of our rising candles have the color of green right here. But if you pay attention right here, you can see that we got this blue stroke around of it. We can change that one too. First of all, we can change the color and we can change the width too. So let's actually make the width of that to some other thing so we can see that better. So here we have this stroke width and we can pass the number. For example, here if I pass this 5, you can see that it got thicker. And of course, we can have this stroke to change the color of the stroke. For example, here if we make this black, you can see that here we got those items right here. But here, let's get rid of this stroke by having the width to 0. And because we got this, we don't need this color too. So we comment this out. And just as same as thing that we done with rising candles, we can do the same thing with falling candles. So we have this falling color right here, which is going to be again object. We have this fill. Because this is falling, let's make them red right here. And let's make the stroke width to be 0 in this case too. Now by this, we have done with our candlestick part. And now let's jump into other part, which is changing the color of these bars, which are blue right here. For changing these ones, here inside of our options object, we need to have property of colors, which is going to receive array from us, which inside of this, we're going to pass our color as a string. So for example, here, if we make the color to the black, and here we need to make this color to be in options and not candlestick. So let's collapse this candlestick. And here we put this comma. You can see now we got our color of these lines to be black. And we can change this however that we want. After this item, we can have some settings for two vertical and horizontal axes that we have right here. And for having those, here in our options, we have this H-axis and V-axis. In H-axis, which is again is going to be another object, we can have baseline, which is the line that is going to be highlighted more and show the base value for us. So we use this baseline right here and we pass the value that we want it to be. For example, if we put this 0, you can see that we got this baseline to be 0. But if we make this to be 6, you can see that it moved right here to be 6. But we want this to be 0. After this, we can change the color of that baseline. And what we need to pass is as same as putting this baseline right here, followed by a color word. And here we can make what color that we want. For example, let's make this blue so you can see the difference. But again, we don't want to use that here. Another thing that you have noticed probably is how we got 0, not 1, 2, 3, 4, and only even numbers. For changing those, we can have another thing here too, which is going to be this show text every property. And here, if we put the number 1 right here, you can see that it is default, and why these are not showing is because of the sizing. So if we make this full screen and refresh, you can see that we got all of the numbers right here. But here, if we refresh again, because they are less spaced, it's going to not show these ones. But if we make this 2, it's going to show us 1 every 2 items. So it's not going to show us number 2 and jump onto this 4. But if we make this 3 right here, you can see this time we got this one and this one. And these 2 items are hidden. And if we make this full screen and refresh, this is going to be applied to all of these 2. So we got number 1 and 2 hidden, number 4, 5 hidden, and only show these 4 items. After this, the other thing that we can change is our grid lines right here that you can see crossing the chart area. And for changing those, we need to have this grid lines right here, and it's going to be object, and inside of this, we got this color. So let's again make this blue so you can see the difference. Now you'll see we got these blue colors right here, but again, we're going to stick to the default value. And after these one, we can have title for our access to. So let's say here we want the title, so we put this property of title here, and we pass whatever title that we want here. For example, let's say here we want the title to be date. And here you can see that we got the state. But as you notice, this is not very good looking. And for styling this as same as our chart, we got this title text style, which is going to be again object. And inside of this, we can define the things that we want, starting with the color that we can put. So let's make this gray, for example. After this, we can change the font size. We can make this bold, as you know from the previous part. And we can have this font size to be, let's say, 20. Now, this is how we want it. And just as same as we got this H-axis right here, we can do the same things with our vertical axis. So we put this comma right here, and here we have this V-axis right here, which is going to be again object, and here we can have those items here too. So here, let's copy all of these items right here and put them in this V-axis. And here we need to change some of. First of all, here in vertical axis, we don't need this show text, and it's going to act different. Here in grid lines, we have the count property that is going to change the count of grid lines for us. The default value is going to be -1 right here, which you can see this is default, but you can change this by putting different numbers based on how you want your grid lines to be. For example, here you can see that we got this 4. Here we got 1, 2, 3, and 4 line and 4 parts. If we make this 5, you can see that we got 5 grid line and 5 division here in our chart area. And if we make this 1, you can see that we have no grid lines because we want this to be only in one part. And if you make this -1, it's going to automatically divide your chart for you. And after this, we have another thing of this main spacing. And this is going to be number which this and this is going to work together to give us these results. And this is the gap between of our items. So if we make this, for example, 40 instead of 10, you can see how it changed. And if we make this 80, you can see we got less grid lines right here, which here we don't want to have this mean spacing right here. So we comment this out and we want to make count to the 5 right here. After these items, let's change the title to be this price right here. And these are good and we're going to stay with these. But another thing that we can have here is our min value and max value. And what I mean from that if we have this mean value right here, we can define what is the minimum value that we want our chart to start. The default one, of course, is the 0, but if we make this, for example, minus 50, you can see now we got our chart to start from here, minus 50. And of course, you can have this any number that you want, but pay attention because here we have created this count to be 5. You can see that all of our parts are 25. And here we must put the values related to the 25 and covering the items that we have. For example, we can have this 125, it's going to work, but if we have 126, it's going to be the same because the division of our chart based on number of 25, and we need to have that one. So we make the mean value 0, and as same as this, we have this max value. And here again, we can define the max value that we want. For example, if we put 150, you can see that we got our chart to be until 150. And of course, we can have 125 and some large numbers like 300. But again, here we want this to be in number 100. After all of these items that we have talked, we have another thing that when our chart loads, it's loaded with animation. You can see here if we refresh, nothing happens and it blinks and shows to us. But for having animation, here inside of our options object, we got this animation property. And here inside of this, we need to define some other properties. First one is being the duration, to how many milliseconds that we want our animation to run. For example, let's say we want this to run on 1 second. So we put milliseconds. Then we have this easing to how we want it to be. For example, I want this to be linear right here. And then for activating our animation, here we need to use this startup property and put that value of 1. Now you can see how our animation do and come to the life. You can see that we got this thing right here, but let's say here we want to change the background of our chart too. So here we got another thing that we can work with that, which is going to be property of background color, which is going to be in options object, which again, this is another object. Here we got the property of fill, which we can pass what color that we want. So let's actually create dark mode of our candlestick chart. So let's make this to the black. After this one, we can have some border and strokes around of our chart. So we have this stroke width. Let's make this 2 right here. And let's make the color. So we use this stroke and we pass the color, let's say blue right here. Now you can see that we got this blue color right here. And because we don't want these one, we comment these out. Now let's make the other settings so our dark mode candlestick charts be more prettier. Let's start top here with our options starting and our title style. So let's actually make the color of our title to be white. Now, if we come here, let's have this background color that I told you earlier right here and make this out of comment. And if we come lower than that here in our candlestick, nothing is really going to change. Here in the colors, because we want to change these colors to not showing like this, let's make those white too. Now after that, here in our h-axis, let's make the baseline color to the white, and let's come to our vertical axis to have again this baseline color to be white. And another thing that we can have in our vertical axis, which is very good actually, it's the direction that we want. So if we have this direction property right here, if we make this 0, you can see that we got the reverse chart right here, which our vertical axis starting from top of our chart and this 0. But if this is number 1, it's as same as before. After these items, we can change these ones designs too, so you can see this 0, 6, 12 and other things. And for changing those in our options, we need to have our simple font size right here that we can pass what thing that we want. For example, let's put 20 right here. Now you can see how large it is, or you can make this maybe 25. Again, you can have whatever that you want. And now let's change the color of our grid lines. So here, let's make this one to be this color right here, and just the same thing for our horizontal axis. So here we have this grid lines, and we want them to be this color. And this is how you can have your candlestick chart in dark mode with animation and those interactivities which now are not enabled. If we enable them here, let's find that. Here, if we make this number 1, you can see now here this is the animation, and we can click on these, we can select these and do whatever that we want. And of course, you can change the size to how you want it to be. And if you want anything other than these ones that you want to know, you can put that in the comment and I'll answer that as soon as possible. For the next several videos, we're going to create geocharts, timelines, and other things. So please subscribe and turn on notifications so you know when a video comes. And if this video was helpful, I'll be happy to see your like on this video. Please give a like and subscribe to catch next videos.